So I'm getting the idea that a lot of people that aren't familiar with Inkstitch, recently coming to Inkstitch, new to Inkstitch, what have you, that they're having a hard time figuring out, is it a simple line or a simple stroke that can easily be auto converted into a satin stitch, or is it a fill line that cannot easily be automatically converted into a satin stitch? So what I have in front of you on the screen, these are two identical lines. I made both of them with the Bezier tool. Both of them are a path. From the screen that I'm giving you right now, there's no way to know that one of these is a simple stroke of 4mm wide and can easily be converted into a satin stitch. One of these is a fill line that cannot easily be auto-converted into a satin stitch. So what do you do? How do you know? There's a couple of ways. One way is just to go to the fill and stroke tab, and you can get there by object fill and stroke. That'll get you to the fill and stroke tab. And if this box right here is checked, let's see if I can remember how to do this. That button should do it. Nope. Oh, that's right. That button should do it. Okay. So, by selecting that one, if I go to the stroke paint tab, this right here is selected. That means there is a stroke on this one. If I turn the stroke off, it disappears. Therefore, it is a simple stroke line. Stroke style 4mm wide, and there is no fill. If I select this one, there is a fill. If I turn fill off, it disappears. There is a fill. Stroke, there is no stroke. Therefore, there's no stroke style. If I turn stroke on, if I turn the stroke on this object on, all I'm going to do is get a simple line around it. Which, okay, sometimes that's not a bad thing because sometimes you want a border around it. So now it has a stroke around the outside, but the line itself is still not a simple line and will not be easily converted into a satin stitch like this one, unless you need that satin stitch border if you're doing say an applique or something like that. This isn't going to work. So I'm going to turn that stroke line back off. We have the fill. So on this one, we can go into extensions, Inkstitch, and tools. Satin, convert line to satin. It's now a satin stitch. You can do that with simple lines. You can't do that with this. Extensions, Inkstitch, tools, satin, convert line to satin. It's not going to work. So what do? Now you have to manually turn it into a satin stitch. And the way that you do that is you would recreate this on top of this. So on this, I'm going to turn my opacity down so that I can see what I'm doing over the top of it. I'm going to take my Bezier tool and I'm going to redraw this over the top of this. So I'm going to start right here. The color of the Bezier line doesn't matter. And I'm going to make a line. There's my simple line. Didn't get it exactly, so I'm going to adjust it down a little bit. And that's a little better. Okay, so now we have one of the rails. There's a couple ways you can do this. One way I'm going to do it exactly like this one over here. So I'm going to make another line just like it is over here. And then now we're going to make another line. You can do this last one with the Bezier or with the pencil, either one. And I'm going to draw that single line across. So when I select this fill, turn off the fill so I can see just what I've done. Now this looks a lot like that. We're not done yet because that is a single path. These are several different paths. And one of these is my fill. So these three are my current paths. We have to combine that into one path, like this one over here. So I'm going to select all three of those, and you go path, combine. The keyboard shortcut is on PC is Control K. So now it's one. Now we can make it a satin stitch. If you go to Inkstitch and params, go into the satin column, and then select custom satin column. Now, the one that we made should look just about identical to the one that was auto-created by Inkstitch. That's the one that was auto-made, or auto-converted, and that's the one we manually converted. They pretty close look identical. So, in something as simple as this, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to give that its fill back. Had to remember what I did. So I'm going to give that its fill back. So now we are back to one's a satin, one's not. When it's this simple, you have just a single satin column. You can get away with not using a rung, only using rails. So I'm going to make that, I'm going to Control D, or where is it? Path, somewhere up here there's duplicate. I don't remember where it is. There it is. Edit, duplicate. Control D on the shortcut. Now I have duplicated that, and I'm just going to drag that duplicate in place on the other side. So this is a nodes. This is a way of making satin columns by the node. As long as your nodes match, you can do it this way. Control K, extensions, Inkstitch params, satin column, custom satin column. Now our satin column's back, and we didn't use a rung. So that's just an example of knowing the difference between the simple line that can be converted to a satin stitch and the fill line that will have to be manually converted to a satin stitch. Another good example is I'm going to select a font, a system font. So this is a system font. And then I'm going to select, what is that font? Sans, okay. And then I'm going to do an Inkstitch font. Nope, wrong button. I'm going to do an Inkstitch font in the lettering tool. Something similar. I think Inkstitch medium is pretty similar. Oh, Deja Serif, I think, is pretty similar. Let's go with that one. Close enough. And again, one of these is a fill stitch and one of these is a satin stitch. In this case, the satin stitch is pretty obvious because it looks like the satin columns that we have to use for Inkstitch. But if you're using system font, you can't push a button and make that into a satin stitch. You can push a button and make it into an applique stitch down, and I have a video for that somewhere back yonder. But other than that, one of these is a fill stitch and one of these is a satin stitch. And depending on what you're using it for, the one or the other is going to be the more appropriate method to use, depending on what you're using it for. Again, if it's an applique, if it's a meander fill, like the hat that I made. That's a meander fill with a satin stitch outline. I did that with system font, not satin font. So just trying to clarify the difference between is it a fill object or is it a simple line object that can be easily converted. So maybe this will help you out. I hope it does. So that's it for this video. And as always, thanks for watching.